landlords are a category of human being who are forced basically to be slaves. You have to be a landlord. You have no choice but to be a landlord. So you own a buy-to-let property and you're looking to sell it and do something else with that cash. Surely that can't be that complicated, can it? Andrew Roberts.
Hi Ranjan. I mean, in theory, no, it shouldn't be complicated.
It's your property, fundamentally, you know. If you want to sell it, do something else, redeploy the cash or whatever, that should be your right.
It should be my right to do it, but under legislation, it's not.
Yes.
What bloody lunatic come up with this idea?
Well, apparently the Prime Minister, who is a former human rights lawyer, wants to really take away our human rights as landlords. Because basically, under new legislation, if you have decided, for whatever reason, that you want to sell a particular buy-to-let property, if a tenant's in occupation, you cannot actually serve them notice that you want to sell that property unless they've been there for 2 years.
My mind's blowing. I mean, there's two elements here. One, you're a landlord. Two, you've invested capital for a return. Now, along with this, they've abolished point 8 of section 21, where if a tenant is in persistent rent arrears of 2 months or more, 3 or more times during the tenancy, then you can serve them notice to quit. So a tenant's not paying, you want access to your capital, you want to get a return, but you can't get rid of them, and now you can't sell the bloody thing for 2 years.
And then there's another issue here, is that you got a mortgage on the property. If you don't pay the mortgage, the banks can repossess. Do they have to wait 2 years? Are the bank's rights more than the landlord's rights? Or is it part of a great big plan by the global elite that the banks actually hoover up all these assets? Comment, let us know what you think.
I was going to say, that's an epiphanous moment from you, Ranjan. But I mean, coming back to this, I have 2 houses on a street next door to each other. The one is owned by a homeowner. They can choose to sell their house whenever they wish. The other is owned by a landlord who can't sell the house because there's a tenant in there. So those 2 houses that, if you was to look on Rightmove, normally might both be valued at £250,000. But now the one with the tenant, the only buyer is likely to be a landlord who now knows that he can't actually sell it. So it will reduce the value of houses on the same street. So how are we going to do any analysis? How's Rightmove and Zoopla going to make sense of this? How is a valuer, more importantly, going to make sense of this?
But I want to address human rights here. You know, because as landlords, we are human beings and we have human rights. So what I'm finding amazing is that we have a Prime Minister who is a former human rights barrister, former human rights lawyer, who has defended all sorts of people, all sorts of known terrorists, all sorts of people like Jimmy Savile. He's defended them all. He's defended their human rights. Now, landlords surely have a human right. If you are a worker and you do not want to work for a particular company or employer, you have the right to withdraw your labour. So landlords are a category of human being who are forced basically to be slaves. You have to be a landlord. You have no choice but to be a landlord because you are locked in here. Now, can that be fair? And is that a human right violation?
Well,
now, I won't be asking Keir Starmer for legal advice on that one.
Well, the question is, does he keep his professional competency up? Clearly not. But my point here is, as a landlord, you are working in your business and you're working in your property business to provide a product and a service to your tenant. if your tenant stops paying you the rent that you are due, you are effectively working for zero. So you are now working below the national minimum wage. Is that an infringement of your national human rights in terms of you're working for free for somebody, charitably? But not only that, you have over 180 pieces of legislation to comply with, and you have to put your hand in your pocket and spend money even though you have no money coming in if the tenant is not paying you. Where is that person's rights?
Now, a couple of things that are unclear by all of this stuff is that what they have said so far is that the first 2 years of a tenancy, but there is there's nothing I've heard of yet where they're talking about a minimum term for a tenancy. So if you've got a 1-year tenancy agreement, presumably that tenancy agreement just ends.
One would think it would end, but with this government, who knows?
So what we're saying is there could be an automatic right to renew. It's not about that the tenancy just comes to an end. There's an automatic right to renew.
It would be, I would suggest that what you are likely to see is that although you might have finished the 12-month or 6-month fixed term, that rolls over into an ongoing commitment and license for the tenant to stay there under their AST without the need for a new tenancy agreement to be started or entered into.
So, I think this is a fundamental shift from how things existed before. There are lots of reasons why landlords want to sell. A lot of people are accidental landlords and simply want their property back, or they want to move on with their own life and put it into another home for their families. Some people may be retiring and they want to sell and get on with their retirement life. Other people just want to redeploy their capital elsewhere. There are loads of people who start off in buy-to-let, they've bought one type of property, and then as their career goes on, they're looking to sell the properties they bought in the early stages of their career and reinvest those in developments and things that they're doing now. So there are all sorts of reasons why landlords wish to sell, but putting a block on that is really an infringement of human right. The other thing we haven't discussed is how this would work in HMOs, because you'll have people in different rooms moving in at different times. One guy might have been there for 2 years, one guy might have moved there last month.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bonkers scenario. And not only are we looking at the HMO matter, but have the government actually thought about this and costed this with the Office of Budget Responsibility? Because if I decide to sell a property, when you sell a property, you pay taxation, be it corporation tax if you're incorporated, or be it capital gains tax if you're a sole trader. If all landlords are suddenly barred from selling their property for 2 years, what's the tax take going to be, or tax loss going to be to the Treasury? Have the Treasury had any input on this policy brought about by the fundamentalists, the loony left society, or is this a case of we don't care what the tax is going to be, because we'll tax all them foreign landlords that now can't get out of the UK because they're all trapped in the UK?
One thing I do know is there will be loopholes, there will be opportunities to sell your property if that's your intent. So stay tuned to this channel, we'll be keeping you up to date with those. Like, comment, subscribe for much more. The Baker Street Property Meet is the UK's largest and #1 property investors networking event. The property market is going through monumental change right now, and at Baker Street Property Meet we aim to keep you up to date with the latest tips and tricks and insider tactics to help you keep on top of your property investing game and succeed in these troubled economic times. The Baker Street Property Meet is fundamentally about networking, because it's not what you know, it's who you know. And at Baker Street we aim to connect you with the people to make your property journey a monumental success. There's no better place to be to further your property investment journey than the Baker Street Property Meet. So make sure you're here, you're connecting with myself and Andrew Roberts, our expert guest speakers and 300 passionate property people each and every month. See you at the next meet. Get your spot at bakerstreetpropertymeet.com.